No.
Okay, perfect. Thanks everybody. So like Stephen said, today we have Stephanie Capetto, and we are going to give you guys an introduction. She is going to give you an introduction to the R5 Southwest region broader scale monitoring strategy. And it, I will say, goes beyond like helping you find the trends and monitoring across resources associated with our region and your forest. There's a lot of really cool utility to what this has to offer, and that's what Stephanie's going to share with us today. Stephanie, I will let you introduce yourself a little bit, maybe about your background and your position, and then we will jump right in here. So, thank you.
Sure thing. Thanks, Ruby. Hi, everybody. My name is Stephanie Capetto. I'm the regional monitoring planner. So I'm at the regional office. I've been at the regional office about 3 years. Before that, I spent about a decade on the forests in various capacities, um, working with fuel planners to plan projects, to mitigate impacts to resources, and to get fire back on the landscape. So the concept of helping fuels planners get fire back on the landscape, reducing fuels is very near and dear to my heart, both from working with fuels planners as practitioners and now trying to get data to help you all. Um, One, think about the way that you can use these data in your NEPA projects and your proposed actions, but also trying to think about ways you can use some of the information I want to share with you today as communication pieces, right? When you're talking with a wildlife biologist and you're planning a project, maybe this can help you understand a little bit of their lingo and help you uh, bring them into yours. And also a communication piece with your forest leadership and with the public. So the data that I'm going to show you are all publicly available, and they will be updated at least they're supposed to be updated every 5 years, but our plan is to update them every year. And so far, we're on track to release our second version in May of 2025. So, first things first, I'm going to tell you first, Ruby, can you give me a thumbs up? You can see my screen, okay? Okay. First, I'm going to tell you why we did all this. We have what's called a broader scale monitoring strategy. And under the 2012 planning rule, which is a lot of fine print in our planning rule law, it says each region should have a broader scale monitoring strategy that answers questions that are shared by more than one unit. So you can imagine, like, many of the forests in our region have curiosities about the trends in wildfire, the trends in air quality, the trends in water quality, climate change, right? Those trends don't just stop at an administrative boundary and influence one unit. So that was the idea of a broader scale. We released ours in 2020, and here is the cover page of it, and here's a link. I can put these slides in the chat afterwards if you guys want to access any of these links. So we released ours in 2020, and what it does is it asks 10 questions. They're ecological, social, and economic questions. And so what I did here is listed the 10 questions. I don't expect you to read them all, but what I wanted to highlight is in the bold what each question kind of centers around: aquatic resources, animal species, visitor satisfaction, climate. And I put in red some of the ones that I thought were particularly applicable to fuels, like changes in vegetation over time, changes in insects and disease related mortality and invasive species, air quality, wildfire regimes, and then ecological restoration goals. We have a pretty cool dashboard that helps you identify what has been your pace and scale of treatment, of using prescribed fire, of using wildfire that meets resource objectives. Okay, so why do we have a broader scale monitoring strategy? Well, as I said, it's required, but it was intended to help all your forests do your plan monitoring program. Now, shocking, not everybody's doing it. That's okay. It seems kind of silly given our budget constraints these days. Some of the forests are doing it and are doing a spectacular job. But what we decided is, listen, you know, even though some of these forests aren't doing their plan monitoring program, we really need this to help forests in their NEPA, in communicating with their leadership, communicating with each other, helping like to develop proposed actions and needs. So we wanted to create an interactive tool for you all to assist better in project planning and allow you to explore your data more deeply. And so what I'm going to do is show you, this is what we came up with in the, and we released our first version in April of 2024. This is the broader scale monitoring strategy website. That's the link that's in the chat. And what it does is it again restates the 10 questions. It has downloadable reports that you could use and you can cite in your work. If you wanted to use any of the trends from this, you can get a PDF of a report, or you can come down here and you can click on any of these icons of interest and explore the data for yourself. And if you so choose to use the data from one of the dashboards in here, the FAQs tell you again how to cite the data. This is all publicly available. So from all those social, ecological, and economic questions, we created a state of the region, right? And that just basically is like the State of the Union address a president might give, where it comes down and it says, okay, what are the main key takeaways from wildfire trends in the last 50 years? And any image here, you can, enlarge climate change, air quality, etc. I won't go into too deep of a um, description of the state of the region, but say that you're writing a purpose and need for a project, or say you guys are coming up with a project where you need to reduce fuels on your landscape and apply fire. Maybe what you want to do is you want to dig into the wildfire trends so that you could see, okay, what has been happening on our forest in the last 50 years, or our province in the last 50 years, that tells us why we need to why we need to apply fire to the landscape. So if you come into wildfire, every page looks exactly the same. It has an introduction, methods and data, how to access the data. 99% of the data we got comes from publicly available sources. Facts, we even cleaned up facts, if you can believe it. Still not perfect. Ravage, FRAP, and everything that you can access as well. And what you can do is you can come in here and you can see the trends and the different metrics we looked at: wildfire size, severity, high severity patch size, seasonality of wildfires, fire return until departure, and reburn frequency. And I should say, this is not the Stephanie Capetto broader scale monitoring strategy. I am not a subject matter expert in wildfire. So I reached out to Kendra Fallon, our regional wildfire ecologist, and Mark Myers, who is one of the province ecologists in our regional ecology program and has a unique specialty in wildfire, and they helped put this together. And then of course CAL FIRE has reviewed it, and goodness, I feel like I've presented this to every fire agency imaginable. But let's say you want to dig in to wildfire. So every one of these indicators comes with a dashboard and an interpretation. And so say you're in wildfire size, you can come here and select, let's say you're in the Southern Sierra. You can select the Southern Sierra, and you can write in your NEPA project, hey, since 1970, the number of fires has fluctuated, but the total size of fires and the average size of fires has increased dramatically, particularly after 2000, right? So this is just something to give you some basic information. And again, here, you can come to an interpretation where everything's laid out for you already. If you just want to lift some of the language, let's say for the Southern Sierra, you can even lift the figures that show you the trends over time and lift the interpretation language. Now, say you're curious about severity of wildfire. Here, this is the interpretation page for severity. Let's choose a different province. So say you're in the Sierra Cascade province, you're in the Plumas, the Lassen. You can come here and you could say, well, in the Montane and Upper Montane zone, boy, we have seen quite an increase in the acres of fire burned at high severity. Now, the proportion is generally between 39 and 63%, but boy, this is far above the natural range of variation. And we know the natural range of variation is about 15% of the montane conifer burned in any given year. And this is how high severity the Upper Montane and Montane are burning in the Sierra Cascade province. 54% on average. That in and of itself is a graphic and an interpretation that would be great to go in your project to say, this is why we need to reduce fuels so that when fire does occur, it doesn't occur with high severity. But say you're curious about going to the actual dashboard and pulling up perhaps a fire for your forest. You could say, you can again select a province, say you're up in the Northern California area. You can get this chart that shows you the acres of fire severity over time in the montane upper montane zone. You can zoom in and you could check out any of these fires and their perimeters. Say, I should have started with this. I live in Lake Tahoe. So say we wanted to look at the Caldor fire. What you see here is the fire perimeter of the Caldor fire, and it tells you 96,000 acres of that fire burned at high severity, right? I won't even go to like the Dixie or North Complex. But anyways, for wildfire, you've got lots here. You've got even your high severity patch size, right? So we know the natural range of variation is 250 acres about in the montane, upper montane zone to burn at high severity, contiguous high severity. And I won't show you those. You guys know those results, but it's again indicating we're far above the natural range of variation. Seasonality is a big thing, right? So you can come here and you could say, all right, let's do Southern California. So Southern California, this is like a heat map that say you're in Southern California and you're really wanting to change the, with your Santa Ana winds and really give a description as to why fires are now occurring and starting throughout more portions of the year. This is a great heat map. You can click on it, you can download it. And it will show you the darker the color, right, for this right map means the more, the bigger wildfires that burn that started in that month. This is the darker the color, the more wildfires that started in that month. If you are interested, you can go in and say, hey, I just want to look at the ignitions in July. Like, are we getting so many more ignitions in July? And say, I'll go to Sierra Cascade again. Boy, look, there's a huge dot. You click on it, that's the Dixie, right? And clearly you're seeing starting here, a lot of the fires in the Sierra Cascade are coming during this time. Again, nothing mind-blowing, but just something for you to use as more information to put into your documentation. Here's reburn frequency. This was Kendra's idea, and this is the idea that the montane and upper montane zone should be burning about every 20 years or so, and you see some of these places in the montane, upper montane burning 3 to 7 times in 20 years. And so you can come to your province here, wherever your forest is, and you could say, look at this. I mean, we have some areas burning 2 times in 20 years, fewer than 5%, but still it's quite a bit. Now, that's wildfire. There's still so much to explore on this that I won't be able to get to, but I want to show you what's coming in 2025. So in 2025, we're going to have data current through 2024, and then we're also developed a forest level dashboard that's currently under review. This is getting at the number of wildfires, acres on National Forest System lands. Okay, so we've clipped the fires to the lands. This gets at severity at the forest level, and then this tells you what of the fires that we're burning, what proportion we're burning at the different severity levels. You might want to say, hey, we're seeing some low severity fires in these areas. Let's take an opportunity to work in those areas. And this tells you whether or not you're above or below the natural range of variation. So say you're on, let's just choose maybe the Six Rivers National Forest. You could see here, it will refresh itself. This isn't publicly available yet. We're still working on it. But you could see here the trend over time in the acres of high severity fire in the montane and upper montane, and which years you were above the natural range of variation. And it looks like here, on average over the last 10 years, about 37.7% of your fire severity has been above the natural range of variation. So if there's any comments on that, love to take them in during the question and answer. If you guys are looking to write some more information on aside from wildfire, there's a whole bunch of information on insects and disease and tree mortality. Again, this is by ecological province, not by the forest level, but by province. And then we do have forest level summaries. So if you just need a quick summary of acres of dead trees or estimated number of dead trees, we certainly have that for you. We also have trends in invasive plant species. And then let's say that you need to talk to a wildlife biologist on your project to really talk about working in packs, for example. Well, you can come to animal species, or say you're up in a northern forest and you need to talk about northern spotted owls. you can come into, let's say, California spotted owl, and you could say, hey, look, say I'm on the Stanislaus. The owl occupancy has declined over 2 years. What is going on there? Or same thing for, the Lassen perhaps, or the El Dorado. We know that a lot of these are due to some of the fires that have occurred there recently. And we know that because you can come here and you could see how owl occupancy changes with time since a wildfire and the severity of a wildfire. And so this is a great way for you to have a conversation with someone on your IDT and say, listen, we know that between 2 and 20 years, especially, the higher severity that a cell burns, the quicker it is to be left by an owl. Either the owl dies or the owl abandons the area. It's a great talking point to have with your fellow wildlife biologist. Again, there's lots here. There's air quality. Perhaps the last one that I'll finish on is vegetation trends. And say you have to, sort of give your 5-year plan or your out year program of work on how many acres you think you're going to burn, how many acres you think you all are going to treat. Well, you can come to this. And again, I'm just showing you the dashboard, but again, it's got all the interpretation and the codes that we've grouped here. And that grouping came from conversations with Joe Sherlock, Robin Woods. Thank you, Robin. You have been like such a help in me thinking some of this through. But you can come to this dashboard, and we have a dashboard for activity acres, footprint acres, right? So footprint acres are the 1 acre of ground that was treated, regardless of how many times, just that 1 acre. And then the wildfire acres, that 1117 and 1119. So what you could do, you can come here and you could say, all right, say you're on the Stanislaus National Forest. You select the Stanislaus, it brings you in to see the different FACS treatments. They're all color coded to match how we've grouped these into timber harvest, which is this dark green, prescribed fire, which is an orange, fuels treatment non-fire, the brown, and then reforestation as the green. And you can come in here and you could see, okay, well, over the last 10 years, the Stanislaus, geez, like half of their treatments have been fuels treatment non-fire. Looks like just about a quarter are prescribed fire. And here you get all of the information with quantitatively. This gives you a proportion. And then here, if you wanted to, you could turn on the wildfire layer and you could search where fires have happened over your treated area. And then again, here too, if you want to dig more into the fuels treatments, it's all listed here. How do we classify those fuels treatments? Fuels rearrangements, grazing, invasives, yarding. Same with prescribed fire. So we have them either pile burn or broadcast burn. We've lumped them into the 2 categories. And you can unclick anything if you want to see, if you want to just focus, let's say, on salvage, right? You can unclick commercial harvest and regeneration harvest. The one thing that I think you guys might like to see is for footprint acres, prescribed fire after a timber fuels treatment. So what this does is it tells you where did you treat on the landscape without fire, and then follow up with prescribed fire in that same footprint. And I think we're asked to show that a lot. We're asked to talk about whether or not we've completed a treatment by applying fire to the landscape where we've conducted, let's say, a fuels treatment, a thinning, a timber harvest, mastication. And so what this shows you is for the region, it shows the trend in those exact acres where we did fuels treatment since 2002, and then we followed up with prescribed fire in those exact footprints. So you can, if you're the fuels planner for the Tahoe, you can come in and this is a great communication piece with some of our frequent litigants, our objectors. You can say, look, 2018, 2019, we did a fantastic job of following up on everywhere that we had done non-fire timber work and followed it up with fire. So anyways, I'm going to stop here. This is, I think, information overload, but I wanted to at least give you guys an idea of where we're at. A couple things just to note is in any of these, air quality, whatever it may be, the last page is the contributors. And so you could see who wrote it. And then for those that have a dashboard, you could see who developed the dashboard. So if you're having a problem working a dashboard or something, you can contact them. Or if you have questions about how the trends were created, you can contact the author. And our next iteration should be coming out hopefully April, May of 2025 with all data through 2024. Thank you so much. And I'll say one more thing. Not everything's up here yet. Carbon's coming, Fisher, meadows, forest structure. Goodness, you guys all know we are lacking lots of spatial data for that. Ecosystem services, amphibians, et cetera. So there's a lot more coming, hopefully next year.
Whew. Stephanie, take a breath. That was amazing, first of all. Thank you. Yeah, it's like every time I look here in the dashboard, I'm just kind of blown away at how like you can go down some pretty cool rabbit holes on here. And it's really cool. And it's a lot to take in. So for folks on the call, do you guys have any questions or curiosities about this? I apologize that that link earlier that I sent out this morning was the link to the PDF and not the dashboard. That was my intent. But we have a great opportunity here with Stephanie here to kind of help if you have general questions about navigation or the data involved or anything. So have at it if anybody has anything. And I saw a couple comments in the chat, no questions or anything, just lots of like, you know, stoked, rock on. People think this is nice. So you people are digging deep already into it. Yeah.
Well,
go ahead, Stephen.
No, I was just gonna say, while people maybe are formulating any questions, that certainly was very informative and very, very cool. Actually, a lot of thought obviously went into that. Don't worry, Stephanie. I don't know if you listen to these calls; it's not too uncommon for the questions, but we do oftentimes get follow up. So,
yeah. Oh, we got one. Thank you, Brian. Come on
there
up.
we go.
Hey, so Stephanie, with you going through talking about where we're doing treatments and high severity fire, we are starting to get comments to projects from some of our frequent litigators about these treatments are actually leading to high severity fire. Does any of the data that you have show overlaps or lack thereof, which would be ideal, between high severity fire footprints and where it overlaps or integrates with some sort of timber or fuels treatment? Their concern is generally that the more that we open up these stands, we're increasing winds, we're increasing rates of spread, and we're leading to higher fire severity on the landscape. And
So great question. An interesting position by the litigants. So our wildfire dashboard does not include areas where we've treated with facts. Though what we're doing this year is we're making all the data downloadable. So you could certainly download the data and see where, if you knew where a treatment was, if it was high severity, that's less than ideal. For the vegetation trends, if you wanted to look, let's say where you did some timber operations, right? And you wanted to overlay the wildfires, you certainly could. The difference is it doesn't tell you severity. It just tells you where the wildfires have occurred. And so you can look and see like where the fires have occurred versus where you've done treatment, but it's not going to get you at severity. And you would have to click on these to know, did the treatment come before or after the fire? And that said, definitely open to suggestions. If you find that there's something that we could provide on these interfaces that would help you respond to comments or just even direct the litigant to, please let us know. And again, like in the future, you'll see a little arrow here and you'll be able to download all this data.
Good question, Brian.
If you guys aren't into interactivity, you can go here to download the reports. It's that public opinion site here, and you can get the PDFs there. But sometimes looking at the data yourself helps in thinking about what's happening at your forest.
Hey, do we want to stop the recording? Or are we recording the Q&A?
I've been recording the Q&A. I think there's
Okay.
value in it, to be
Okay,
honest
just
with
checking.
you. I appreciate that. I kind of regret missing some of the quick Q&As from earlier sessions. So
Yep.
Yeah. Anyway.
Do we have any more questions coming through, or you guys, is anybody actively in the dashboard right now, kind of cruising around, getting familiar with it? Or at least.
Melissa's
Yes.
got a question.
Yes, you are definitely free to use the graphics. So what you would have to do at this time for the graphics is probably clip them. Let me see. So we used Experience Builder platform. It is, yeah, you probably just have to save the image this way by a right click on it. And you could also get them from the PDFs. But Melissa, if there's ever anything that you need that you want high resolution, and just email me and we'll get you the raw graphic, or we'll get you the link to the folder with the raw graphic. And yes, Alexander, I do think it helps when when you feel like people think you're not doing enough, that you can come in and say, goodness, look at all that we're doing. I also thought it was good because we're getting asked a lot to report our accomplishments, not just in activity acres, but in footprint acres. That's coming more and more. And so this was an easy way for you all to come in and see your footprint acres. Anybody have a specific forest they want me to look at something on? And if you find an error, we also want to know that too.
Stephanie, people wanted to follow up with you. What's the best way to get a hold of you?
I'll put my email in the chat.
Yep. This is great. Well, excited to see we had 22 people. We had a few more trickle in. And this is great. Oh, we have another question come in. Can you show the pathway to show the RX fire behind timber again?
Yeah.
Great.
So so you just come here. There's 3 tabs: activity acres, footprint acres, and wildfire acres. Click on footprint acres, and this tells you that, for example, at the regional scale in 2018, we treated 191.8 thousand distinct acres. That's not how many acres of activities we did. Those are the footprint acres. And if you come in here, this shows you how many acres were treated between 2012 and 2022 that were in the exact same footprint as someplace that we had treated previously. So in other words, we applied prescribed fire in an area where we had treated previously. I think then this in and of itself is just a really powerful way to look at where we're applying prescribed fire.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Hey, Bert, I see your hand up.
Yeah, just the question I had is, basically all this is based on the fax entries that we do showing that, the initial treatments, if they were put in and then a follow-up prescribed burn was shown in the fax data, is what populates all this data in here, these graphs.
Yes, so I should say this is showing completed, not accomplished. So you do have to go in and show that you've completed the work to do it. The other thing we found a lot, obviously, not surprisingly, a lot of errors when we went in of either some aren't showing completed or the spatial information didn't match the tabular information. So we did a whole heck of a lot of cleaning up when we got these data. And certainly I can pass off those methods to you, Bert, but if what you're getting at is the integrity of the data really tells you the integrity of this tool, you're absolutely right.
Okay. Yeah, just something to remind when we enter data that, people kind of think, oh, well, where does this data go and live and how it's used? So I think people forget that it's it's being utilized everywhere for major decision making and health.
I'm really glad you said that, because we noticed that with the invasive plant dashboard as well. We created that from our corporate database, and the botanist said, well, boy, if I knew that this was going to help me in my NEPA this way, I would have paid more attention to how I put the data in. And I mean, I'm a culprit too. Like I entered NRM wildlife data when I was on a forest. I entered FACS data once, and that was all I could handle. And so I totally know that we are understaffed. We have very few people trained in FACS. FACS in and of itself is annoying, but what I would say is we did a ton of sleuthing to figure out like what were those common errors we found, and then we tried to either void out ones that we thought were inaccurate. But the most I can ask you guys is to go in and when it's completed, put it as completed, and the other is to make sure your spatial data match your tabular data you're putting in. I don't know if anybody's from the Yukon Ranger District, but you guys are also missing a lot of data when you pull from certain feature classes. And so we had to go and search and find the data for the Yukon because for some reason you guys keep falling off of Region 5's data when it's getting synthesized.
Interesting. Great. Well, Stephanie, this is a great introduction. Every time I dig in here, I feel like, boy, I could like, you know, block out another 30-minute to an hour section to give myself a chance just to really kind of explore some different areas within that. And I would encourage folks to, you know, take a look into the areas that Stephanie showed us today and just get curious in some of the other resource areas and really, you know, hopefully you guys find this as a cool utility to help us really kind of navigate and frame up the importance of fuels and why we need to do what we're doing on the ground and really help support or speak the same language of the folks that sometimes are part of some harder conversations for us as fuels folks to really get on board with what we'd like to see done and the needs. So I would say to kind of stick true to our, you know, 20, 30-minute platform for you guys. Stephanie, thank you again so much. Really appreciate it. You guys know this chat's